listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. This is always your guy, Pat Lane, here with my man, Matt St. Jean. And Matt, it's the final post-game show of the 2024-2025 season. Thank the ever-loving God. And a win, which no one's happy about. Just not one single person is happy about this win.
It's just what a strange day, really, in all of the sports. But especially in football, I think, we're going to get into the details of this, obviously, but it's disappointing to not have the number one overall pick.
Yep.
With how poorly this team played this season and how valuable that could be to this team. I am happy that the coaches made the correct decisions to essentially treat this as a preseason game. They had guys that I've never heard of playing real reps for a large portion of this game.
Yeah.
And I am shocked that some of those players played well enough to actually win. So I'm in a weird spot where I'm a fan of the team. I can't be I can never be too upset watching them win a game regardless of the consequences for it because they're my team. I like to see them win. I was still rooting for a loss at the end. I was rooting for the Bills to score on that final drive and at least tie it.
Yeah.
And I was just confounded. We've done the Joe Milton thing for a while. Joe Milton in college, I don't think ever played a football game as well as he did today.
No.
So it's just I guess it's we got what we asked for. The guys played better than we expected and you win. I don't really know what to do with that information.
Well, here's the hard thing, right? Obviously, everyone's upset that they won, right? Anyone that's a Patriots fan is upset that the Patriots won, obviously, right? Because you're just all you had to do was lose today and you get the number one pick. The Giants gifted you the number one pick last week. They handed it to you on a silver platter, and you looked at it and said, this is great. We have the number one pick. This is fantastic, right? The problem is they won, right? And we talked about it during the week. I said, it was almost a guarantee that the Patriots were going to win, and they did. But like you said, they did what they had to do. They played Drake May for one series and then pulled him out and started and played Joe Milton instead, right? They played a bunch of random dudes on defense. Some battle guy, never heard. No idea who that guy is. No clue.
I think they signed him yesterday.
Right? They had the Jones kid played a ton of linebacker. They had random dudes. Number 97, Leo or something like that was playing.
Leo, yeah.
No idea. Just random guys playing meaningful snaps for you, right? And they started Robinson at right guard. No idea. No clue. Don't know who that is. No idea. What's crazy is they had Robinson and Robinson at the two guard positions. But it was one of those situations where the coaching staff just said, yeah, we're not playing anyone of consequence. But the guys went out and played well. And you just kind of look at it and say, well, what are you going to do? What do you do with that? You can't, the players and this guy, Spectre Dez is totally right. Nobody, the players are never going to tank, ever.
No.
Right? And you can't expect the players to tank, right? And so that's finally, it's one of those things that the players are never going to tank. It is what it is. The coaching staff, looked at it and said, all right, let's play the backups. They played the backups, and the backups were better than the Bills' backups. And frankly, the Bills players wanted to lose the game because they screwed the Patriots over. They don't care about winning or not. They're in the playoffs. Who cares? And that hurt the Patriots. And it is, what are you going to do? It is what it is.
Well, like for the players, you're in this weird spot right here, and there's like a lot of factors going on. But the first layer of this is that if you are a second or third string player on the New England Patriots, a team that is guaranteed a top 4 pick in the draft, the NFL does not think very highly of you, which means that any time that you are on the field, you need to do everything in your power to make a good impression so that you can be signed to a 90-man roster to get to training camp next year to have a chance to catch on with a team.
Right.
So for New England, any player that ever touches the field, especially down the stretch here, especially the guys that are out there today, this is your one chance to make, maybe in your entire life, the one chance you will ever have to make an impression on a team in a real game to give yourself an opportunity to make money and make this a long career for yourself. That is what they're doing. If you're a backup for the Buffalo Bills or a guy that's out there today, a lot of those guys the coaches know and like, and they probably have safe roster spots for next year. And if they don't, they're a backup on the second place team in the AFC. Somebody's going to give them a shot. Somebody will have liked them enough. Yeah. They're a much more secure position. So you have that going on in the first layer. Then the second layer of this is that the Patriots just game planned very aggressively and very well to beat the Bills like 2 weeks ago. It worked. They just didn't execute. The plan was good. They just made a couple of big mistakes and lost the game. And you can just run back that exact same game plan because the Bills aren't planning for this game. They're already looking ahead to Denver, backups in. So you get like extra work in the same game plan, which is just unique to this schedule and who you play. So you should get a weird game where it's like, all right, it's third stringers versus third stringers. One team has game plans and has players that care a lot. The other team doesn't. And you get that plus, Bills blow one coverage and Milton takes advantage and he leads two, I would say, really good drives in there.
Yeah.
And this is what you get.
That throw from him on the booty touchdown. The booty touchdown and then the non-touchdown to Pop, which by the way was an incomplete pass, I guess. Because they declined the penalty, right? And they said it was incomplete.
They went to whatever the quick replay review thing they can do. I wasn't paying attention, to be honest. I don't know if he lost the ball or if he didn't get down back.
I'm not sure, but they declined the penalty, and which I thought was interesting because if it were a real game, they would have accepted the penalty because it would have knocked them out of field goal range. But instead, they declined the penalty, making it 4th down, but giving them an easy field goal. Not an easy field goal, but they were at the 30-yard line. It's not like they were at, the 15-yard line or something like that. You know what I mean? And they were in field goal range anyways. They were on the outskirts of field goal range. If they accept that penalty, it pushes them out of field goal range and then makes them make a play to get back into field goal range. So I thought that was interesting. But those two throws were outrageous. Just absolutely. The thing about the one to Booty was that he's throwing it across his body on a rope. That's not like, when someone sent me, other quarterbacks have made throws like that, of course, throwing across their body and stuff. But him stopping like that and throwing it like a line drive fastball, like 50 yards in the air, is just insane. And so, that's one of those things where you look at it. And look, this is a very similar situation what happened in Houston when Lovie Smith got fired after his first – Lovie Smith, right? Was it Lovie Smith that got fired and then – or David Culley got fired? I don't know. Right, I suppose they both got fired, right? But I think it was Lovie before they went from 1 to 2, right? They had the number 1 pick and it dropped them to number 2. And so it's one of those things. And so for me, I looked at it and think, Mayo's looking at it saying, I don't care. Why do I care? And so that's the thing. And look, there's two sides of this thing. And of course, Jimmy Johnson went 1-15 his first year, and Dan Campbell went 3-13, and all this, and on and on and on and on and on. The fact of the matter is that it was an absolute disaster. It was a disaster. And everyone was watching the disaster, right? From the podium nightmares, from the messaging ridiculousness. It was a clown show. It was an absolute clown show, and it was obvious that he didn't have control of the locker room. Period. That's just fact. Watch the players, watch the way the players work, watch the way the players, are making mental mistakes week 17. Like, what are we talking about, dude? Like, they're just clearly not prepared.
This whole season was like the equivalent of the college kid who takes a class, and like seems like he thinks he could just mess around the first 3 quarters of the semester and then do well enough on the final exam to pass the class. Except he came out in the final exam when he needed, an 80 to pass the class, and you're getting like a 15 on it. Like, that's what this was coming out of the bye with the last couple performances and the nonsense off the field to go with it. Whether it's Mayo, the whole thing with Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson was just a total, like, I don't have an explanation for that one that's good. And it's not like on its own. If the team was good, you'd write it off as, oh, that's funny, that's weird, but you're not. So you got to be buckled down on those things, and they aren't. And then Tavai stuff this week. I mean, I think that happened after our midweek show, so I don't think we talked about that.
Yeah, it did.
But like, as a general rule, I'm not really a big fan of booing your own team. I think it's kind of silly. I get it. I understand why people do it. I'm just not really a big fan of it myself. As a player in professional sports, when you are paid to do the job, other people pay to watch you do the job well. If you don't do the job well, people are going to get upset with you. You have to be able to take that. That is part of the job. Whether or not you think it's fair, whether or not you think it's nice or kind or the right thing for the fans to do, it's what comes with being in the business. What did Jeremy Springer say? You don't want to get shot, don't sign up for the army or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
Like this is the job. You're going to get a lot of public criticism in it, and you have to handle that. And for Tavai to respond to that the way he did, it's just unacceptable, especially when you haven't been a good enough player. Like,
right. Well,
like if Tom Brady came out and said something like that for New England, it'd be like, okay, well, it's Tom. He's earned the right to say what he wants, even if it might be a little bit, not the right thing. We're talking about a second linebacker who has been not a fan favorite for his play all season. We'll put it kindly.
Awful. He's been awful. and look, and again, he played well in the role that he was in last year, right? With Jawan Bentley in front of him. He then tried to take over Jawan Bentley's role and pretty clearly couldn't do it, right? And so it's one of those situations. And look, it is what it is, right? Like, it's one of those unfortunate things, right? You can't respond that way. You can't. Nobody likes getting booed. Nobody, I'm sure. Right? But at the same time, you suck. You're terrible. You didn't show up in the game. Robert Kraft basically came out and said, we want to keep Mayo unless it's a complete disaster the last few weeks. And then it was a complete disaster the last few weeks. Yeah. You played well against Buffalo for a half, and it was like, okay, there's some momentum. If they come out and play well against LA, there's really a chance. Maybe they don't win, but at least come out and play hard and play well and play smart. We have a chance. And you come out and play like that? Of course you're going to get booed. Are you insane? Like, that's what happens because you sucked. And you know what I mean? And that's the only issue for me.
Yeah, I do. I want to highlight, because we haven't even talked, like we've talked about Mayo getting fired here, but we haven't gotten into some of the stuff with it. DJ Daniel here comments, and I think this is a good question. I think this is a very relevant question to the subject. He asks, what was Mayo's record supposed to be realistically?
Right.
I have a good answer for this because I wrote about it yesterday.
Okay.
The preseason betting line for the Patriots, the expectation over under was 4.5 wins, which was the lowest mark in the NFL. So basically, it was, will this team be better than it was last season when the Patriots also won 4 games?
Right.
Now, at the time these lines are coming out, the Patriots were projected to have the hardest schedule in the NFL. These lines also came out when Drake May was essentially a complete unknown.
Yep.
rookie quarterback could be anything. We've seen the guys who were hyped up, who everybody loved, come out and just stink it up. And at this point, nobody even knew if he would play as a rookie. There was a lot of talk about him sitting the entire first year. Well, the team as a whole has been better passing the ball than it was last year. May has outperformed expectations. And the schedule, instead of being the hardest, has been actually much closer to the easiest schedule in the NFL than the hardest schedule in the NFL. So you get better than both in expectations and then you were last year at the most important position in the sport. You face an easier schedule than anyone anticipated, and you still can't meet, the over for your betting total for the season. I think there's a lot of reasons to get rid of Jerod Mayo, but you could look at just those without anything else and justify going to a different coach.
Right. Well, and that's really what it comes down to, right? And we talked at length about how difficult their schedule was going to be. It turned out, just based on strength of schedule, according to Tankathon, just based on strength of schedule, they had the 8th easiest schedule in the league. Right.
And I've seen 12th easiest, I've seen 5th easiest in different places.
And it depends on, I don't know if they look at the record of the team when you played them versus the record of the team at the end of the year or whatever. But Tankathon, of course, includes the full season worth of games, right? They were 471. And I think I believe the lowest was Washington at like 436 or something like that, which is insane. But either way, right? So there were not a lot of teams that had an easier schedule than them, just according to the numbers, right? I mean, look, you played Tennessee, you lost. You played Jacksonville, you lost.
Not
you
just
played
lost.
The Jets, you split.
You got crushed. You get crushed by Jacksonville.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you were going to say it in there, but Miami was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team this year. And you got them when they were strong and lost, and that's fine. You got them when they were at one of their weakest points in the season at home and also lost.
Lost. Yeah. And that's the thing. You didn't lose to Tua. You lost to Skylar Thompson. So, that's and obviously they lost to Tua as well. But, it's like, come on, and that's the thing. And by the way, this is, and you just highlighted it. So I think I'm just going to pull it up because this is, it's totally right. So, Jeff, I'll just read it. It says, to be honest, he could have survived 4-13. The fact that he kept having to walk back his own missteps and the lack of accountability and development were the nails in the coffin. And that, to me, is the point. The point is not that he went 4-13. That's not the issue. This roster stinks, right? They knew this roster stunk.
The results.
Right. It's the process of the results. It's what happened. It's the zero development. Zero development. We saw development from the quarterbacks. I guess you could say we saw a little bit of development out of Layden Robinson, I think, at the end of the year, improved a little bit.
And I think Brendan Schooler probably counts for development.
Okay.
Marcellus Dial, special teamers, which is nice, but that's not why you're paying him, your head coach, the big bucks for.
Correct. And that's really what it comes down to, is that outside of those small things, there was almost no development from anyone. Yeah. And, it's one of those issues for me where it's like, that's bad. Him having to walk back basically everything that he said was real bad, right?
Well, there was a specific moment with this, I think, that looking back on the course of the season really stands out for me as kind of a moment where you find out who Jerod Mayo is and what is important. The Jacksonville game. Jacksonville runs it 17 times in a row on you. You can't stop them. A game that was close, you were actually dominating early, turned into a blowout loss the other way. And your coach comes out after the game and calls his team soft. I never had an issue with this because I don't have an issue with a coach criticizing his players in the press as long as the same things are being said behind closed doors and the players understand that this, I am going to say it to other people the way I say it to you. This is what accountability looks like, because we're all in this together. As long as that's understood, I got no issue with it. And the team was soft that game. And he said that they were soft afterwards, and they deserved it. And credit to the players. I think to a man, like every single one of them that talked after that clip was like, yeah, we were soft. Coach is right. We got to be better.
Right.
They took it well. Who didn't take it well is other members of Patriots media who were flipping out after years of hearing Bill Belichick never say anything, didn't know how to handle this, who went after Mayo for it. And less than 24 hours later, he backtracks on his comments and walks it back.
Right.
So how are your players going to know when you mean it and when you don't? Like if it's early in the season, this is a pivotal moment. It's an island game, you're playing at 9:30 in the morning. Everybody gets to watch over in a foreign country. It's a big deal. You get boat raced and you kind of say, hey, like the big culture moment is how you respond to that. And the response from the head coach was essentially that we're going to listen to what the media says over how the players are responding to this in terms of what I'm saying. And then you come back out to the big picture. This team stinks right now. You need to rebuild the culture, the players, locker room, everything needs to be rebuilt from the bottom up. That takes a real strong vision for what this needs to look like. How can anyone have confidence in what your vision is going to be if all it takes is a couple people in the press saying they don't like what you did for you to back off of it? If that's the way other coaches worked, it would have been Drew Bledsoe starting at quarterback after the Pats-Rams game at home in prime time where Brady didn't play so hot. Like as a coach, you're gonna do things that might not seem right or the media might not get because you're doing it for the 53 guys in your locker room that you understand, and you have to have faith that what you're doing is what's best for that group in the locker room, even if other people don't agree. You got to stick to it. And sometimes you're going to be wrong, and you might get fired, and you're going to have to own it, and you learn from it.
Right.
But when you're right, and it sets the tone, it sets the environment, it sets you up for winning. So, yeah.
And it's not just that. See, here's the thing. It's not just that. It's the fact that it doesn't matter whether it works or not. It doesn't matter whether it works or not. If that's what you believe, if that's what you're about, that's what you need to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if I'm sitting there saying, if I'm Dan Campbell and I'm sitting there saying, I'm going to go for it, we're going to go for it because that's what we do and that's who we are. And then you come to New England and you lose 29-0 to a Bailey Zappi-led Patriots team and you go 0 for 7 on fourth down, that doesn't mean you stop going for it on fourth down. Right? Like it didn't work and you look stupid. You know what? I don't care. You tell the guys in the locker room, I don't care. This is what we're going to do. This is why I believe in you. This is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Bill Belichick did it. He went for it on 4th and 2 against the Colts. I believe in you guys. I'm going for it because that's what I believe in. I didn't go for it because I'm scared. I went for it because I believe we can win and I believe we can get it. Yeah. And so that's one of the things for me where it's like you have to feel that. And by the way, Alex Van Pelt did the same thing. Now, I don't know if it's Alex Van Pelt or if it's coming from Mayo or what, right? But we didn't run Drake May. Why didn't we run Drake May? Well, we're trying to protect him. Well, then what happens? Oh, well, the next game. Oh, we run Drake May, coincidentally, because people were yelling about running Drake May. We didn't have motion in the offense. Everyone's complaining about not running any motion. Guess what? Next time we run some motion. Then we're not throwing a Pop Douglas. So then what happens? Oh, we got to throw to Pop Douglas now. Yeah. It's just like the media were the ones, and the media and the fans were the ones screaming about what was going on, and then they would change what they were doing based on what we were saying.
It felt
that's
like
not leadership.
No, it felt like May only played this season, because the media believed him into it in some ways. Like it's like I just like you said, that's not leadership. You got to have a plan and stick to it and know who you are. And this whole coaching staff, this whole team, we saw them play 17 games.
Right.
We don't know who they are. They never established an identity at any point this season other than a team that makes a lot of mistakes and loses football games.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, someone in the chat says, hi, Brian Flores, the head coach. Hell no. Hell no. Absolutely not.
You know
Hell
what we should
no. He was hated in Miami. Hated in Miami. Go ahead.
What we should do here, I put up on Pat's pulpit if anybody wants to go look, a list of 13 possible coaches we could hire. We can throw some other names on that list right now too if we want to. Maybe after the commercial or maybe our third segment.
I like that.
I can
Go
pull
through
that
some
up. We
of
can
them?
run through it, talk
I'm
through
down
how
with
we
it.
feel about each one.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. By the way, speaking of that, let's do our first ad read, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
All right, this ad read, of course, is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000. That's right, 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's playoff time, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. Now, they do offer Venmo, deposits and withdrawals for super, super quick access to your winnings 15 minutes after you win. That money is accessible to you. Now, this week, unfortunately, another big L, and it was close, man. I had it close. I had a big one going. I had Zach Ertz for more than 40.5 receiving yards. That one hit. I had Mike Evans for more than 10 receiving targets because that was, that one was coming. Got it. But then I had Kyler Murray for more than 34.5 rushing yards, which did not hit, and Geno Smith for more than 242.5 passing yards, which also didn't hit. I was close, but get in on the action. It's a ton of fun. What you're going to do is you're going to download the app Prize Picks. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS. And when you play your first $5 lineup, again, you don't have to win your first $5 lineup. You just have to play a $5 lineup. You'll get $50 instantly. Again, download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay. So, we've talked about Mayo. Elliott Wolf, it feels like...
Before we get to that,
go ahead. Yeah,
I think there's one aspect of the Mayo thing we didn't talk about.
Okay.
And that's the timing of it. Because the way this usually works in the NFL, so when coaches are fired, it usually happens Monday. They call it Black Monday for a reason. Did Bill go on Monday last year?
Or no, Bill went like Tuesday. 4 days later.
Yeah, it was like
Bill was like Thursday or something like that.
Yeah. And I think, behind the scenes, we had talked about our availability for an emergency podcast Monday or Tuesday, anticipating some decision here one way or the other. What we had not talked about was an hour after the game was Jerod Mayo stepping off the podium there and into the house from Goodfellas. Like, oh my goodness, that was fast.
Yeah,
I don't know how I feel about that. I think it could be very good or very bad.
It's it was really bad, and
You don't like it?
I don't love it. I don't love the way they did it. I just don't see why they didn't wait. Just wait until tomorrow. Let the guy go home. Or maybe they just said, no, forget it. We won't. Maybe they told him and he just said, yeah, whatever. Just make it. I don't care. Just make it official today. Who cares? Why would we?
He might have known.
I don't know.
The way he talked in his press conference definitely seemed a little like he knew. And like even Elliott Wolf, because we're going to get to him in here, he gave that interview with Henry McKenna and had some statements in it that sounded an awful lot like Mayo was getting thrown under the bus for this, regardless.
Yeah. And Ryan asked a question about, do you think the speed of it had anything to do with the game result? That's a possibility that that's the case. Look, Kraft released a statement like right away, and it was like a pretty long statement that was obviously, well thought out. And so clearly, they, he knew.
Yeah. I think there's really two ways to look at it. I think one of these is very good and one of them is very bad. I'll go with the positive one first. The positive one is that after that Chargers game, it became very clear that this was not going to be the right way to proceed. They draft a letter, they get everything together, they make their decision then, knowing that we're just going to, do this right after the game on Sunday, wash our hands of it, move on to something new, move on to a new era here. The other possibility is that they saw that Mike Vrabel interviewed with the Jets on, was that Friday?
Yep.
They already decided this is the coach that we want. Forget everything else. This is our man.
Which would be
And
stupid.
we need to move on as fast as we possibly can so he knows that we can go get him.
Yeah.
And, I'll save the Mike Vrabel part for when we go through all the coaches at the end of this. Process-wise, not a fan of locking in on something like we just need a different former Patriots linebacker. That's the solution to this. And somebody had said, like in the chat, something along the lines of, if we're trying to move past the Brady and Belichick era, why do we just keep going back to guys?
Belichick guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. DJ Daniel here. I found it. For a team and owner who have expressed the desire for a new era, boy, they sure want to keep hiring all Belichick people.
Right.
And that was, this happened. Like, Mayo gets fired, and within 5 minutes, every news agency has an article up, not just talking about Mayo being fired, but Mike Vrabel being mentioned in it, and no one else. Ben Johnson's not in there. What's his face? Liam Cohen's not in there. They're not throwing out all. Brian Flores isn't in there. Like, it's Vrabel.
Yeah, and the biggest problem that I have with that is that I think the biggest mistake they made with Mayo was the fact that they never even interviewed anyone else. They didn't see what anyone else had to say. They just made up their mind and just hired him without talking to anyone. And that's a huge mistake. And if they make that same mistake this year, I get it. I understand. You like Mike Vrabel. You have a personal relationship with him, and you feel like he's a good leader and blah, blah, blah. Sure. How'd that work last time with the guy you had a personal relationship with that you liked a lot, that you thought would be a good culture fit? So like that's the real issue that I have. Okay. Well, and it's just like, listen, maybe Mike Vrabel will end up being the guy. Maybe that will be the case. But for the love of Christ, if you don't bring in Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen and whomever else, right? And some other up-and-coming coaches, if you don't at least bring those guys in and see what he has to bring to the table. Because I like Mike Vrabel a lot, but like, was he special in Tennessee? Not really.
He had a couple of really good seasons. Those seasons also coincided with him having a couple offensive coordinators who were so good they later became head coaches.
Right.
So is it Vrabel? Is it that? Is it he just had talented teams? And it's like, we'll get to the whole Vrabel of it if he is a good coach, when we get to that section of this. But
right.
The idea of locking in on someone this early, I don't like. And
stupid.
Hiring someone who you like worked with Belichick. That decision was made in large part because he'd been with the team before, and they had a relationship with Kraft, and was recommended by the players. And someone who was already being groomed for it. There were a lot of things that went into that, but the personal relationship was one of them. I believe it was something with Pete Carroll too. I think that was part of it. Hiring guys based on your personal relationship with them is not good practice. Like, it may have led to Belichick. You shouldn't be doing it every time. That's
which is why Robert Kraft shouldn't be the one making the decision.
And that's the Elliott Wolf. I think it's a great time to get into the Elliott Wolf part of this. Reports are he's staying. I don't know if it's a he's not fired right now or he's definitely staying type of thing. But Elliott Wolf did not do a good job in his first offseason as the Patriots GM. He also didn't have any of his scouts in place yet and didn't get to hire his head coach. So if you say we want Elliott back because we liked him, now he has some of his infrastructure in place and we're going to let him pick a head coach and we're just going to see how this goes and give this thing a fair chance. I can understand that. I can get on board with it. It wouldn't necessarily be my favorite way to proceed, but I think there's some real logic there and there's some merit to that argument. I don't really get the feeling that's what's going on here.
Right. Well, and look, here's the biggest thing, right? And this is something that really hasn't been talked about in the media for some reason. I don't know why. The Patriots overhauled the way they scout. The scouting process was different this year than it has been for the last 20 plus years with Bill Belichick. And so now you've adopted a brand new scouting system. Now all your scouts are using a brand new scouting system. Everything's different.
Yeah.
Don't you think that matters? That makes a difference. You're looking for different things. You're grading on a different scale.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first year, did it work out? Did it not work out? Right. And now here comes the question, right? Well, we don't know. Is Jalen Polk really a bum? Because Elliot Wolf came out and said, we thought Polk was going to be a plug and play guy. And he didn't get developed. And we didn't see any growth or development from him. Oh, okay. That's a pretty clear shot at the coaching staff. Right?
And a shot at your own evaluators, I think, too.
I think so, too. But, like, the Caden, and so then it's like, and we talk about it all the time. And, Matt, I think you do a great job of talking about, like, the fact that it's not necessarily always the results, but the process. That's the most important thing to look at.
Yeah.
The process with Caden Wallace was a flawed process.
Yes.
It was, frankly, a stupid process. Right? Like, you're drafting a guy that's a right tackle that's not even a super highly rated right tackle. And you're going to have him play left tackle? He never played left tackle out after freshman year of college. But now he's going to be left tackle? Like, I just don't understand. A Okorafor, whiff. Now, again, is the Okorafor thing, would he have played better if they were other coaches? Would he have liked to?
Would he have played?
Right.
I mean, he quit.
And that's the thing. So we don't know those things, right? We don't have answers to those things. But the real issue and the real thing that I look at is that I just think that, you know, he hasn't shown or proven anything. That doesn't necessarily mean that he can't do it.
Yeah.
But if you really want to commit to him, as you said, he's choosing the next coach, not Robert Kraft, not Jonathan Kraft,
and the coach
Elliot Wolf.
And the coach is going to report to Elliot, not to Jonathan, not to Robert.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's, you know, and if that's the way you're going to run your franchise, that's the way you run your franchise. You know, and you can't, none of this wishy-washy crap. We don't need Jerry Jones. We see how it works in Dallas with Jerry Jones. We don't need that from Robert and Jonathan. We just don't.
No.
And so, you know, that's the hard thing for me, is that, like, that's where it gets so frustrating. You know, it's tough.
Well, I feel like with that, you know, there's been a lot of the right decision, wrong process at points too in the last couple of years that makes me question the ownership here. Like, the way everything went down with the Matt Patricia to Bill O'Brien switch in public statements and the way it went with Bill was weird. And it was like, ownership was 100% correct to step in that situation, the way that it went down, to say, hey, like, we can't have this Matt Patricia stuff anymore. There's got to be a real guy in here. But then you look at the way that actually trickled down into the organization and the reports about the day-to-day stuff with O'Brien, and his guys never meshed with anybody else, and the infighting with the Bills and all of that. And it was like, all right, well, clearly people weren't on board with this. Ownership, like, that's your responsibility to make sure that everyone's on board with this. Getting rid of Bill, I think, was 100% the right call, given where things were. They did not have the right plan in place. They missed on their evaluation of what Jerod Mayo could be as a head coach in 2024. And that's fine to miss, but every time you miss, the next decision becomes a little bit more important, a little bit higher pressure. And when I'm not super in love with the process they've had for this, like you said, the Jerry Jones comparison seems more apt by the year here, especially as Robert Kraft keeps talking about how he's been a fan of the team. I don't know. It seems like a lot of the guys who are real super fans of the team, who then get involved with the team's decision-making, are those the owners that are bad. Jerry Jones was a huge Cowboys fan.
Right.
What's his face? Dan Snyder was like a massive Washington fan.
Yeah.
Like, that's you don't know this. You buy the team so you can hire people and then step away and let them make the decisions. Like, as a fan, that's what you're supposed to do. Just you're a caretaker, essentially.
Well, right. And
Hope
ultimately,
they go back to that role.
yeah. And ultimately, he got Belichick. He gave the keys to Belichick, and then he was hands off. And, that's the hard thing for me, is that now you look at it and say, well, how come he's not hands off anymore? And I know we're not winning. I know that we're not, chasing Super Bowls or even AFC Championship games or whatever, but like, he was hands off for so long. Just go hands off again, dude. Like, go away.
The whole thing is tough because, like, especially, depending on how seriously you take the Dynasty documentary, the hands-on stuff starts kind of after the 2016 season, or really kind of 2013, 2014, the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff, and then when he's drafted, then when he's traded, then the Super Bowl, then the stuff with Brady's doctor, assistant, whatever you want to call him, Alex Guerrero.
Yeah.
Like, that's when kind of the involvement happens. And like, a lot of it, I think, has been necessary, but now it's gone too far. Again, in the involvement the last couple of years, like, involvement was necessary. Intervention was necessary because the results were not what they needed to be. But they are not doing the interventions in the correct way or making the correct decisions out of them. And it's clearly getting people upset. And it's like, the vibes have been weird on this franchise basically since that Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl, with the exception of like a month-long span in 2018.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
When they won when they went on the run at the end of the season, the vibes have been weird for a while, even when they were winning. And that's ownership. Like, that feels like that comes from the top.
Yeah.
Can I tell you this is a really weird thing. A really weird point that always stood out to me is when the vibes around the franchise changed. And this might be just a me thing. It's when the Patriots announced that they were going to go white at home for the Eagles Super Bowl, because they decided the white jerseys were their Super Bowl ones.
Yeah.
That was a moment where it felt like, okay, you're overthinking this, and you're not just showing up and playing, and you're caring a little bit too much about the appearances and luck and superstitions. Like,
yeah, I didn't like that at all.
No, and it's such a minor thing. It has nothing to do with the outcome, but I think it does tell a little bit about the way people on the inside are thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, why do we care about that, right?
Especially the franchise that has, like, if you're Oregon football, it'd be weird if you didn't do something like that and wear a special uniform. That's who you are.
Yeah.
But
the
Patriot football franchise for the longest time we're us. We show up, we don't talk, we play, we're gonna roll you, and we're gonna go on to the next game. So caring at all about a specialty uniform for a big game is not on that list.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah, it was really weird. So
yeah.
But what are you gonna do? All right, you want to do your is there anything else you want to? Yeah, let's do your ad read, and then we'll get into the coaches.
Yeah, I think
we'll have a deeper discussion, I'm sure, later on in the week.
Yeah, and then maybe after the coaches, we could do a little missed pieces from this game and from the season, miscellaneous stuff that we got to pick up. I'm now just going to be killing time for a second here. So, Ross, I did not have the ad read.
Oh, boy.
In front of me. Yeah. Sheesh. Amateur hour over here. I'm getting distracted by this Vikings-Lions game.
Hey, man, a barn burner. I hope you didn't have the over like me, idiots.
This game, I mentioned it to Pat before the show. This game reminds me of Super Bowl 46, in that it's just a weird game with weird plays happening the entire time and nothing feels the way it should be.
Yeah.
Bizarre stuff going on. But anyway, let's talk about game time. The NFL playoffs are here. Obviously, the Patriots are not going to be in them, but that doesn't mean that you can't go. Who doesn't love going to see high-stakes football in person? Now, you can go to a dome playoff game and hang out indoors. You can go to an outdoor playoff game and enjoy some cold weather, hard-nosed football. That's where I'd be at. Game Time Picks makes getting tickets for the NFL playoffs even easier. With Game Time Picks, you can filter out the fluff to only show you the best deals on the best seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Go to Game Time Pick, any playoff game this weekend or the next weekend, or college football playoff bowl games here that you want to go to, find the game. You're going to hit the Game Time Picks button, and you're going to see all the fluff disappear on your screen. It's just going to show you, the best value seats all around the arena. You want to sit in the 100s, you want to sit in the nosebleeds, you want standing room only. Like, it's going to break it all out for you. You can see the best value seats in all of these areas. It's fantastic. It's easy to use. You can hit the all-in pricing button, and it's just the price you see is the price you're going to pay. You click on the seats you're interested in. It's going to show you the view from that section. You're going to get on-time ticket delivery and a lowest price guarantee, or they're going to credit you with 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right. What do we got for a list here, my friend?
All right, let's pull it up right now. I broke it out into kind of 3 sections here that we can go through. Section 1, it's going to be the head coaches. These are guys who have been head coaches in the NFL before. They have that experience. Okay. Section 2 is going to be guys who are coordinators right now. Section 3 is going to be your college head coaches, because there's a couple names there that I think are worth talking about. But let's start at the top with the name that really has headlined most of the articles here, Mike Vrabel. He's the head coach of the Titans, led them to a 1 seed in the AFC. They pulled off. It was kind of funny. I think Mike Vrabel's 2-2 in the playoffs. 2 wins were both on the road, and the 2 wins were both first-round home playoff exits. So kind of an up and down playoff tenure for Mike Vrabel there. Got fired after 2023. I think there were some disagreements with ownership. Teams did not, they did not like how close he still was to the Patriots after his Hall of Fame induction that year. Mm-hmm. So some stuff going on there. That's the history. Where are you with Vrabel?
So I don't hate Vrabel. I don't. I actually think Vrabel's a decent head coach. He needs a very good offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't hate Vrabel and Brian Daboll, assuming Daboll gets fired from the Giants. I don't know if he will or not, but assuming he gets fired from the Giants. I am 1,000% out. 1,000% out on Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. Like, I'm so far out on that. Like, I will riot in the streets by myself if they hire Vrabel and then Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. It's horrifying. So, regardless, but either way, I think that, look, there are aspects of him that I like. He doesn't move the needle for me. He doesn't. I'm sorry, he doesn't. I just I feel like there are better guys you can go with than him. And again, maybe I'll be wrong about that, but I just don't love Vrabel as the head coach here. Myself.
I kind of feel so. He's like the tough guy thing going on the way Dan Campbell does. So, I think he could be good for the culture. I think the team would immediately be better with him.
That I agree.
He is a floor raiser. I'm concerned about the actual details of the coaching. That was not consistent there at Tennessee, and the Titans were very good. They had Matt LaFleur there with him for a year. Then they had Arthur Smith. Smith did a really good job there. That's how he got a head coaching gig out of it. Mm-hmm. Once those guys left, the offense started to go downhill a little bit. Part of that was also, Tannehill getting older and the offensive line falling apart. And then, you trade A.J. Brown and that whole fiasco. That was a factor in that. So it's not all on Vrabel or the coaches under him. But he's a guy you do have to support with a lot of coaches. The plus side here is that he's older, he's more experienced, he's been around a lot more places. So he has a much bigger tree to pull in guys that wants to coach with him. I think you'd probably get better assistants. But, I won't be upset if Mike Vrabel is the coach. He spent this last year in Cleveland, and he's doing stuff there. So he might end up, learning things and improving there, which I think would be, awesome.
Right.
He could be good. Like you say, he's not a wow guy for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Next guy. You talked about him before. Brian Flores.
Yeah. I'm 1,000% on Brian Flores. 1,000% out on Brian Flores. I mean, what he did to Tua in Miami was just a masterclass in how to ruin a quarterback. They hated him in Miami. And he's a very good defensive coordinator. He's we're watching the Vikings right now. And of course, Detroit just scored a touchdown to go up 17-9. But he's a very good defensive coordinator and he's been great there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see it. And I just don't think, and Old Man Mom mentions that he sued the NFL and the owners and everything like that. And that to me isn't as egregious. And maybe he'll be blacklisted and he won't actually get it. But I
don't think Kraft have an issue throwing something in the face of the NFL. I'll tell you
that. Yeah, right. You're right about that. And so, but I don't see it. I don't see it with him. I'm out on Beefla.
I think they should bring him in for an interview and get some explanations for some of the stuff with Tua, because it was egregious. It wasn't it was very poor treatment of Tua as a person. It sounded like he picked favorites with the defense over the offense the entire time he was there.
Yeah,
it was not good. He lost that job for a reason on that front. He did not handle that well. So if he had explanations for that, had showed that he had matured and that would not be a factor going forward, and had a real offensive plan with coaches that he wanted to bring in, I would consider it. I'd want to bring him in and interview him, though, and see if he had answers that I liked on that front.
Yeah.
And he would have to have good answers, I think, to move past that.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Third guy I have on the list is Arthur Smith. Now, I'm going to say my piece here first before you go, because I want to... This is the name that intrigues me, because I think sometimes we overlook guys who were underwhelming their first time as a head coach.
Yeah.
A lot of times guys learn from that, and this argument is very true for Mike Vrabel as well. But Arthur Smith had a really, really good offense in Tennessee. He goes to Atlanta. He's got end-of-career Matt Ryan, Taylor Heineke, Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota to work with. They go 7-10 all 3 years. I don't think perfect coaching or anything in there, but he's in Pittsburgh, and he made Russell Wilson. He's the only coach that has made Russell Wilson look like a functional NFL player in a long time.
Right.
He's made that offense look decent for a pretty decent stretch this year. He also used Justin Fields as a runner. I think he's creative. I think he's generally been pretty good at making bad players look better. So he's a guy I would at least interview as kind of a let's give him a second chance and see what he learned from that first tenure in Atlanta. And, maybe you just don't get good answers on those questions and you move on and it isn't the right fit. But I'd be curious.
I like the idea of bringing him in for an interview. I don't know if I love the idea of him being the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea of bringing him in for an interview. And if he blows you away in the interview and you feel really good about it, then sure, maybe you hire him. And again, he's an offensive mind. He's not necessarily young, but he's a good offensive mind that has shown that he can be creative with guys that can run. And if that's the case,
he's experienced too. So, you should get if that's one of those, if you're hoping he gets the hiccups out in his first stint and the second stint goes a lot smoother.
Yeah.
Which, again, I say the same thing about Mike Vrabel and all these guys. If you're on this list, you were a head coach, you got fired. You got fired for a reason.
Yep.
These guys usually, I think all three of these guys deserve a second opportunity at some point, but they're going to have to find a place that is comfortable with them, taking the chance of them improving whatever they messed up before. And sometimes that gets you a Bill Belichick learning from the issues in Cleveland. And sometimes it's Josh McDaniels and he just does the exact same thing again for no reason.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next guy?
Coordinator level. We can go through these a little bit faster, I think, but we'll start with Ben Johnson, hot name on the block, Lions offensive coordinator.
1,000%, 1,000% in. Bring him in for an interview. See what he's got going. See what his plan is. See what's going on. and then surround him with talent. Bring in a solid defensive coordinator. Bring in guys that can make the offense run the way that he wants it to run. He runs a lot of stuff under center. He runs a lot of stuff in the shotgun. I think that, and what I think is interesting is that he kind of opens up the offense a little bit more even than Jared Goff would, because Drake May can run the ball a little bit more effectively than Jared Goff can. And so I would love Ben Johnson.
Yeah, no, I am 100% in agreement there. Like, I'm not quite as sold on him as you are, because there is the part of me that's concerned that Dan Campbell's the culture guy, Ben Johnson is the brains, and maybe either one of them isn't the same without the other.
Right.
So that is something you have to evaluate in the interview. You'd be dumb as hell to not bring him in for an interview. Like, you have to. You have a quarterback going into his second year who is considered one of the most promising prospects in the whole league. If you don't bring in the guy who's widely considered the best available offensive mind to at least consider what that would look like that is incompetence, that is malpractice. Yeah. You got to do it. We'll go to the other Lions coordinator. Their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, is someone who has gotten attention really this cycle. The Lions coming into this game were top 10 in points allowed, and that includes the defense where everyone has gotten hurt. Terrion Arnold left tonight's game with an injury. The only decent cornerback they had left, basically. Like, everyone, they're just dropping, and they've still been productive. So, what do you think about that?
I don't mind Aaron Glenn. I'm not quite as sold on him. I also we need an offensive guy, so I'd have to know who the OC is for Aaron Glenn to really get on board with that. But I don't necessarily hate it. I don't mind taking a young coach who's an up-and-coming guy who's shown that he can do it. I don't mind doing that at all. And again, then you run into the same questions with Johnson, which is, what's the culture like? What's he going to be as a head coach as opposed to just defensive coordinator? And those are questions that you just don't have an answer to. And you just got to see, what he does in the interview. And if he blows you away in the interview and you're really impressed and you think that he can be the guy, then he's the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Glenn is he's lower on my list this cycle in general, just because he hasn't impressed me as much as some of the other defensive guys are. So if I think I'm going with a young defensive coordinator, I have another name on this list that interests me. Wouldn't mind if they interview him. I think he's a guy who would really have to wow me in an interview to get it. Going back over, the next two names here are going to be offense. Liam Cohen, Bucs offensive coordinator. He is from Rhode Island. He played at UMass. He coached at UMass, Brown, URI, and Maine. And then is in the McVay tree from the Rams.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. You have to interview the guy. I mean, Tampa's offense this year, right? You look at, Godwin goes down with an injury. Mike Evans, I don't know if he's quite the same. Baker is good, but he's not. He resurrected Baker's career basically down in Tampa Bay, and so, and he's even got Jalen McMillan going at this point too. So I think you'd be silly not to do that. And then we'll see. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be like a great head coach or anything like that. But again, the guy has done enough to deserve an interview. And so, you got to give him one.
Yeah, 100% agreed there. And he is the guy to me that would start probably not being one of my, he's probably candidate number 3, 4, or 5 on my list in that tier, who, if he interviews well, could very quickly move up the list. But with any of the young guys who haven't been a head coach before, you want to hear a detailed plan of how are you going to handle the other side of the ball is your first thing. What are you going to do on that side is, I think, very important to me. And day-to-day managerial stuff, that applies to every candidate in this category right here, how you handle that.
Right.
We'll say one guy who I'm not quite as worried about for that stuff is Todd Monken. He is the Ravens offensive coordinator. He first started coaching in 1989. So he's been around for a while. He kind of came on later in life with the Georgia team that won the national championships, the offensive coordinator there. Been the offensive coordinator for what could be back-to-back Lamar MVP seasons here in the NFL. Much older dude, very experienced NFL and college, been to a lot of places, coached everything on offense, and run 2 very different systems the last 2 years in Baltimore. but older. I think he's 58, something like that.
Yeah. I don't hate it. He's never been a head coach, and he's a little bit older. Kind of strikes me as like a David Culley type guy who was like never a head coach, but like is old. So I wouldn't necessarily love it. But, again, if he comes in and blows you away and you feel like, okay, this guy could really be the guy, then I'd be okay with that ultimately.
Yeah, I kind of agree because he's in the 3, 4, or 5 category for me here. I think somewhere in that of like a guy like I really see the upside, but also there are aspects of this that I'm very skeptical about. He might just be an offensive coordinator and never a head coach, and that might be fine.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Speaking of a guy like that, he's not on my list. I don't think he'd be available. He'd actually be in the former head coaches category because of a brief stint. That's Steve Spagnuolo. He's older.
Yeah.
He's a head coach very briefly at the end of the St. Louis tenure for the Rams.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. But I don't know. That's an interesting one. He really wasn't successful as a head coach. But he's just such a good DC that you wonder, like, I don't know. Could he do
and
it?
it's been over it. Here's the thing: he's older, so it just might not be worth it at this point. But he's been, what do you call it? It's been like over a decade now since he was a head coach. That's an awful, awful situation in St. Louis. So it's still funny to me that the architect of the 07 offense, the best offense in NFL history, and the architect of the defense that actually managed to stop it, both coached together on the same
And it was
team.
a complete disaster.
Atrocious. They went like 2-14 or something. That kills me. Football, man. But yeah, all right. Well, we'll keep going with this list. I can get through some of these a little bit faster. Jesse Minter, Chargers defensive coordinator, was at Michigan with Jim Harbaugh and helped win a national championship. Was with the Ravens and John Harbaugh before that. So another Harbaugh to Harbaugh guy, college and NFL experience, younger, 1 year here in the NFL as a coordinator.
I don't hate it. But again, I don't think he's necessarily the guy yet. He's just young, and so to me, it's not. I'm not looking necessarily for somebody just like that. I think you have to go with someone a little bit more proven, or at least a little bit more proven as a coordinator, even if he's not proven as a head coach.
Yeah, I think he's a year or two away from me. I like the idea a lot, and the Chargers, I think, have been the best defense in the NFL this season by points allowed. So like what he's done there is incredible.
Yeah, which is wild. Yeah. By the way, someone he's not on your list. Trade a first round pick for KOC. Woo!
I would. Here's the thing. I'm not trading this year's first.
Absolutely not. No.
I would trade a second. I just get wary about trading picks for head coaches. That's a general rule.
And of course, Patriots did it back in the day for Bill Belichick, and it worked out quite well. Yeah. But and by the way, the Broncos did it for Sean Payton, and that one worked out pretty well too. But
yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'd probably do next year's first, to be honest. Yeah, I think I would do that.
Or I do this year's second and next year's second, but I'm certainly not doing this year's first.
No, top 4 pick. No, that's not moving.
Maybe
if there were like a pick swap involved, if we swapped with the Vikings first this year, maybe.
Yeah, but then you're going from 4 to like 28 or something like that. I don't know.
Depends on how the Vikings do in the playoffs here. Yeah.
So the reason, by the way, Old Man Mob's asking why would the Vikings trade him, because his contract runs out after next year, and there are some questions about whether or not he will sign an extension and whether they want to sign him to an extension. And so that's the reason why there's been some speculation.
I think that this is just being driven by.
I think so too. I think so too.
More money.
Yeah.
That's a good name. 2 more lower level names at coordinator. One's Adam Stenovich. He is the Packers offensive coordinator, not their play caller. So kind of like Van Pelt in Cleveland.
Yep.
Background as offensive line coach, and he was the run game coordinator in Green Bay. Yeah, just a different profile for a guy like that.
I wouldn't hate a guy like that as an OC, maybe, but certainly not as a head coach.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. Then Joe Brady, Bills offensive coordinator. I don't mind interviewing, but
I think he's worth an interview for sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I don't know. He's tied to Joe Burrow in 2019 as the pass game coordinator there at LSU, and Josh Allen the last year and a half in Buffalo.
Right.
Obviously did a fantastic job for both of those, but he sees, again, more like an offensive coordinator to me than
an actual head coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with that too. You need a guy that's going to be, and again, we don't know. Obviously, if you're a coordinator right now, there's no way to know whether you're actually going to be a good head coach or not. There's just no way. But I do think that with a guy like Ben Johnson, for instance, you feel like he's done enough where he deserves it. And so we go from there. So we'll see. I also think too, you're going to need probably a mostly new staff because the majority of guys are going to go. And again, AVP, what's so like, I wish, and I don't know, maybe they can. I wish you could keep AVP and TC McCartney. Because what they've done with the quarterbacks has been great. The play calling during the games and some of the decision making and stuff, and in the what am I trying to say? Oh my God, dude, the creativeness. Hello.
Oh, there it is.
The creativity at times hasn't been as good as I would like it to be on the play calling side of
it when they've tried it.
Right. But here's the thing. Joe Milton, when he came here, was a mess. His mechanics were a disaster. He couldn't, I always say about Josh Allen, he couldn't, fall out of a boat and hit water. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't.
And he worked with what do you call it? Jim Harbaugh and Josh Heupel in college at Michigan and Tennessee, two guys who were like known for being good quarterback coaches.
Yeah, right. And so that's the thing. And so now you're looking at it saying like all of a sudden this kid can sling it and he's like being accurate and making good decisions. And like I thought one of the best plays that Milton made today was when he rolled out, trying to keep things alive. And he you could see he wanted to force the ball in and he said, no, he just threw it away. And like that that's a high IQ play that he wasn't really always making in college, right? And so like those are the types of things where they've taught him well. And it's one of those things. I mean, again, I don't know, but I just feel like the growth that we've seen from the quarterbacks have been pretty solid. And so, I like that a lot. The problem is that I think the play calling needs to be better. So ultimately, I don't want AVP as the offensive coordinator. He's probably not. I mean, he's under contract. So, like, would you pay him the same amount of money to be your,
I think
quarterbacks coach? Like, probably not.
Well, Ben Volen said that he has already been fired. He's the only one who said that, so I don't really know how seriously to take it. But yeah, no, here's the thing. I would be willing to give Van Pelt a whole other year as offensive coordinator. I don't think he's been great at it this year, but I think what he's been handed is so bad above and below him that I'm okay giving him one more year because things are working well with the quarterbacks. Not going to be upset if they move off of it. I wouldn't mind him staying. That's where I am with him. I still have a couple other head coaches, by the way. I have the college guys to get through.
Oh, God.
Do that real quick.
Yeah, let's do that quickly.
Yeah, this will be quick. First one, Dan Lanning, head coach of Oregon, undefeated this year, Big Ten champs, lost in the first round of the playoffs. But outside of that, best team in college football this year. History is a defensive guy. Came up on the defensive side with Georgia when they won a national championship. Culture guy at Oregon.
Yeah, I honestly I don't know if any college coaches are going to be really what you're looking for. I like Dan Lanning, but I don't love him either. Okay. He had that whole thing about Colorado when they played Colorado last year about how Colorado's all about,
the clicks.
It's all about the clicks and everything else. And it's like, yeah, dude, like so isn't everyone. Like, and I know he's making a statement and trying to pump his guys up and stuff. But I don't know. I like him, but I wouldn't necessarily want him as the next head coach.
Yeah. The other guy here, in the same category is going to be Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame.
Yep.
Also a defensive guy, also a culture guy. I think what's
Yep.
interesting, Freeman, Lanning, and Jerod Mayo, I believe, are all the exact same age.
Yeah.
So it's like I think Freeman and Lanning are kind of both what you were hoping Mayo was going to turn into, as the young defensive culture guy with steady improvement, guys who have made things work and built the culture where they are. I'm assuming you feel probably the same way about Freeman as Lanning, maybe a little bit
Freeman's
better.
actually an interesting one. I think what he's done at Notre Dame has been pretty solid. But again, it's kind of that same thing where you're like, I like him, but is he really ready to make that jump to the NFL? And especially after what happened with Mayo, are you willing to then go for a super young guy that doesn't have any experience in the NFL? And so, zero experience in the NFL. It's tough.
I think this is one of the questions. One of the things that interests me here is that we're talking about a Ben Johnson, talking about a guy with NFL experience, a guy who has never been a head coach of any kind. He's never had to oversee the whole team. He's never had to do the management stuff and the culture stuff that comes with that.
Yep.
The college coaches interest me because they've done all of that.
True.
They just haven't done it with guys who are, 29 years old and making $20-30 million a year. Like, it's a different type of person you got to do it with. Yeah. So both of them, have an area where you would need to, you don't have information about how they would do, and you're just kind of making assumptions off of what they've done with other things. So I would try to interview at least one of these college guys, just get them in the building if they're interested, if they would consider the NFL, and see how it goes. And maybe they don't have what it takes for the NFL at this point in their careers or wherever. But I would be interested. The other guy here is Steve Sarkisian, who is kind of a unique person. He's been a head coach in 3 different places in college. He has also been I don't remember if it was an offensive coordinator or an assistant in the NFL. He was with the Falcons at one point. He actually might have been with the Falcons. No, it wasn't when Arthur Smith was there, I don't think. It might have been.
No, but he was, yeah. Sark's a guy that I like, but again, I'm all set.
Yeah, that's especially because he's older. I think he's 50, which isn't too old to do this by any means.
Of course not. Yeah,
but just a different profile of guy, which could be a good thing. Could be a guy who's more experienced. He's been a head coach in 3 different college stops, and he's turned Texas, a school that was kind of known for the. Oh, well, they're never going to be back. They're going to fool you into thinking they're going to be good finally, and then they're going to lose the game. They've been good the last 2 years, legitimately a good team the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So he's done a good job there. And I think the same thing applies for Freeman with Notre Dame, school that has perennially been the almost school. Lanning in Oregon has always been the too close school, and they seem to be that again this year. But Sarkisian, I don't think he has the personality for the NFL personally. No, I wouldn't hate interviewing him to see if maybe you've just misread him, but I think of all the names on this list, he's pretty close to the bottom.
Again, I think the Patriots should interview everyone, like literally everyone. Just interview them all, and just
Johnny,
choose the guy you like the
coordinator at Foxborough High.
Yeah, I don't care, right? Interview everyone. It doesn't matter. And then make the decision about the guy you want. That's fine, and we'll see. But that's what I would do. Interview them all and just see what happens. So,
yep.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to do, miscellaneous stuff from this game? I have one we didn't talk about.
Okay.
Javon Baker finally getting his first catch.
Hey, Javon Baker got a catch. Woo!
I did think it probably said a lot about their internal evaluations of guys. They're playing people that we've never heard of. Caden Wallace can't get on the field at first. Javon Baker can't get on the field at first. Says a lot about, I think, where they are internally. And, for Baker, that from everything we've heard is a mental thing.
Yeah.
So you hope that offseason fresh coaches, that's different next year, and you're able to utilize him. For Wallace, it's been injuries all year. I didn't think it was particularly.
He was bad today. Bad.
I didn't think he was particularly impressive. Maybe the tape shows something different.
Yeah, he only had 14. He only had 14 penalties today, so it wasn't that bad.
Some of the penalties weren't all on him, but yeah, still, you never want to be hearing an offensive lineman's name called that much. So
right.
Rough day at the office for him. I think you're hoping fresh slate next year. Hopefully, you can turn him into something.
Yeah.
Did Jaheim Bell? He had a catch today, right?
Jerod Mayo did have a catch today, and then probably
Yeah.
fell down instead of trying to pick up any yards. Yeah, but
yeah, I thought Battle, number 35 on defense,
played pretty well.
He and Isaiah Bolden seemed to kind of lock up Keon Coleman at points.
Yeah,
which not a good omen for Coleman.
well, I think that the depth at corner, I was happy about. Now, again, that doesn't mean they don't have to draft a corner or anything like that, but like, I was happy to see the depth at corner. And so, that was happy. Again, it's depth, but like, I thought Marcellus Dial played well. He had a really nice tackle down at the goal line. Really nice tackle down at the goal line.
Yeah. You can see that special teamer in him when he's got to make the tackle.
Yep. I thought Alex Austin played pretty well. I thought, as you mentioned, Battle played pretty well. And I thought that, Bolden played pretty well. And again, the quarterbacks were trash, right? They're Mitch Trubisky and Mike White. But still, it was nice to see them at least like doing a decent job covering guys as opposed to what they've been doing lately.
I do think it's notable that I think the best games this defense has kind of had this year, especially in man coverage, the 2 games against the Bills and it's the Bears game. And those are all teams that have kind of bigger, slower, physical receivers, and they don't do like massive amounts of motion or like super complicated stuff. So the Pats can just get in their grill and play man, and that's where those corners are at their best.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see that. We'll see how much that sticks around because Mike Pellegrino might be gone. He's one of the guys I think you'd love to keep, and I think he's probably the most likely to go. I think he's going to be at UNC with Bill Belichick next year.
You're probably right, unfortunately, because he's real good. He's real good. He's a guy that I would fight to keep. He's honestly a guy that I would consider just making the DC if that's going to keep him.
Maybe.
And again, I don't know if he's. Look, I have no idea if he's actually qualified for that or not. I don't know, but like, he's been so good as the cornerbacks coach that it's like hard to lose a guy like that.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's tough because like DeMarcus Covington was really good as a positional coach, and then you promote him, it just hasn't worked. So that could be the case for Pellegrino as well. Obviously, we will see where they go. I think it's going to be an entirely new staff or an almost entirely new staff because nobody has been so good this year that if someone comes in and doesn't know them, they're going to say, hey, I like what you did. We're keeping you. Some people might. I think the special team staff might stay intact. I think Scott Peters might stay.
Yeah.
I think the defense is tough because a lot of those guys have been good coaches before. So maybe keeping some of those guys in a different system, different players, different head coach and coordinator and all that works.
Yeah.
But I think we might. There's a chance that it's pink slips for everyone, and we're going to start over from scratch. And I don't think I'd be upset with that at all.
Yeah. So we'll see. We shall see. But anyways, I think it's it.
This Lions Vikings game. So it certainly looks like you're going to win our picks competition. So we're going to figure out what the punishment for that's going to be.
Sure does.
The Vikings have wasted so many. They are 0 for 4 in the red zone.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Brutal.
Yeah, Minnesota could be winning this game right now if they executed better in the red zone.
And I would have hit my parlay with the over, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. So
Sam Darnold, man, I saw a stat. This was based on the first half. It had to do with the number of off-target throws he had in a game. I think there was only one other game where he had this many off-target throws. I'll give you one guess when he had this many bad throws in a game before.
Oh, God. Against the Patriots on Monday Night Football? When he was seeing ghosts?
Yes. This is like an all-time bad Darnold performance, which is rough because he's been good this season, and
really
he
good.
There were like 5 throws that if they were 6 inches or a foot lower, they would have been touchdowns. And he sailed every single one of them.
Yeah, it's rough, but
tough there.
Anyways,
now they're gonna have to go to LA in the first round. It looks like.
Oh, he's in.
That'll be a fun game.
That will be a fun game.
And then Detroit, the 1 seed.
Yeah, thank God. I'm happy. I'm happy that Detroit's the 1 seed because I didn't want them to have to play outside. So that's nice. I like that.
See, I wanted to watch them go outside. What I wanted was a Lions at Eagles game. I wanted to see what Jared Goff in the playoffs at the Link looked like in a cold weather game in January.
No, I want them to win, so I don't want them to have to play at the Link. But James says, thanks for a nice season. From my, what are you doing? What are we doing here? To your uniform musings, which, by the way, exciting news. The Patriots might be getting a new uniform. So that's going to be exciting news. We can talk about.
Do you have any more info on that? Or
I do not.
It's just from, yeah.
But I just assume that they're going to.
Lady in the pro shop told me they're getting new uniforms over the summer. So
yeah, I would assume that they will be.
And I did manage to fit in some uniform talk tonight in this.
That's true.
The Super Bowl.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah,
so
we'll manage to fit that in there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to.
Glad they went back to the gray pants this year. Like they look great when they wear those.
They do. They really do. So, but I honestly, the white with the gray actually has looked really good too. So,
yeah, I just have one ask here, which is it's silly, but if they're gonna wear the white socks more often, like get some stripes for them, because when it's just the plain white, it looks bare. Like it looks like they just grabbed like white leggings from the store. Like the throwback. One of the reasons the throwbacks look so good is because they got all the stripes everywhere and they look like that. So like, let's get.
That's a good point.
Put a design on it of some kind. Give it some contrast or some color.
Yeah, I like it. So
yeah. Anything else from this? I mean, the season was up, and it's been all down since week 1.
Sure has been.
That was the high watermark. The high watermark of this season was moments before the field goal was blocked against Seattle that would have sealed a 2-0 start.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah.
That was it. It's been all downhill from there.
Well, we'll always have those first 2 weeks, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. That's it?
That's it. That's all we got. So
now we shifted to off-season mode.
Yep. Mock drafts coming in hot. So are you writing one this week for basketball? But I know you're going to maybe write the one, of course.
Oh, forgot. I told Brian I was going to write up a mock. I got to do that.
Now you don't have the one that you wrote the other day.
I'm going to tell him that's going to come a little bit later in the week because I wrote up. I did the 13 coaches article, and
we should get back into our every 2 weeks. And so if you want to do one this week, I'll do one in 2 weeks, and then we'll just rotate as we go through.
Yeah, I kind of like that. We could, and their picks to the first 3 rounds are set now. So
yep. So
it'll be pick 4. We didn't give our thoughts at all on the fact that they don't have the first pick, really. Other than that, it stinks. Yeah,
blows. I mean, look, they were never taking it pick number 1, but like they're losing out on years of development that they could have had. Years of development. That's disastrous.
Yeah, it's like they probably lost like 3 top 50 picks in the next 2 or 3 years from that, which is
that's horrifying, especially for a team that needs so many things. You know what I mean?
They're probably going to get the same player they would have taken anyway.
Yeah,
but like,
you're right about that. For this year, you would have gotten the same player probably, or maybe even a better player because maybe you would have traded back to 6, say with Vegas or whatever.
It might be better for the player you get with that your first round pick this year.
But then you're losing all of those other picks. Maybe the best thing could be that Shedeur Sanders drops to 4, and then and the Raiders moved up to get him. Yeah, I don't know.
So that was the other thing I was going to say here is that what gets interesting. The Titans, the rumor was they like Cam Ward. He just might be the first pick, and we can write that in. Cleveland, I don't know if the Browns are going to take a quarterback. That seems like a team that might stick and pick just a Travis Hunter type. Definitely also a possible trade situation if they are looking to build for the future here.
Of course, yeah.
Giants at 3. I feel like the Giants at 3 where you really start to think about if they don't like a quarterback, they might try to get one in free agency. They might be in the Sam Darnold group here.
Right.
And if that's the case, are they a team that sticks and picks a player? I don't think it's highly likely, but I do think there is a world here where, in a 2 quarterback class, the second's on the board at 4 and the Patriots can make a trade. I do think there's a world in which it's a 3 quarterback class. If someone like Drew Aller ends up coming out, he has said he won't, but he's still considering it. He has looked much better in the second half of this season. He's a really good athlete. He might immediately be the best quarterback in this class and might shift things. So, That
We'll
could
see.
change the math here. And if there's a world where it's a 3 quarterback class and they go 1, 2, 3, now you're the holder of the first non-quarterback.
True.
And that
Yeah.
might, if it's Travis Hunter, that might be valuable in a trade, even if it's a small trade.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we're gonna have all off season talk about that. Let's get these people out of here. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for not a great season, but thanks for coming through for the season. We appreciate you guys. And we'll be back later on this week, talking all sorts of draft things, and I'm sure there'll be more hirings and firings and everything else as we go. So
I got one more Ben Johnson tidbit I forgot to mention before.
Okay.
Two-part tidbit. 1, he was a quarterback at UNC.
Okay. I like that.
2, he got into coaching at Boston College in 09, 2010, 2011.
See?
So there's a connection there.
There's a little, okay. I like the Ben Johnson thing. That's good. So I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what I want. Ben Johnson or maybe Mike Vrabel. Make Mike Vrabel if Brian Daboll is attached with him and not Josh McDaniels. So we'll see.
I want a coach that wins football games, man. I don't care what their name is or where they come from.
I agree. That's a great point. So, all right, everyone. Thank you. Be good to each other and go.